All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Landon Stell, and I'm presenting my great leader as Winston Churchill. So, in his early life, Winston Churchill was born on November 30th, 1874, at Bellingham Palace in England. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, was a politician, and his mother, Jenny Jerome, was an American solitude. Even though Churchill was very privileged throughout life, and he had like opportunities to grow up and like learn from great people, he didn't really have a great relationship with his parents. He just didn't really feel close with them at all because they were always gone. He was never really around them at all. And then also he struggled a lot academically in school, so he just wasn't the greatest student either because he just didn't care, honestly. But he really excelled in military expertise. So he was fantastic at Sandhurst Military Academy, where he started his first military and political career. And he actually fought, or he was the first Lord of the Admiralty and was the leader for the British Navy. So I'll get a little more to that in more slides, but yeah, that's how he basically started off his political career and also his military career, and also as a leader. So two leadership com- competencies and supporting examples. So inspirational communication. So Churchill is really known to how to be very powerful with speeches and has helped motivate a bunch of people in Britain during that time. So, for example, his "We Shall Fight on the Beaches" speech in 1940 that helped rally Britain to try and resist Nazi Germany, putting resilience into his people. So basically, he inspired people because at the time Nazi Germany was kind of taking over Europe, and he had to do something to get the people kind of going. And he gave a little speech whenever his guys were in Dunkirk, and Dunkirk they were kind of trapped, and they ended up getting back, but they lost a lot, and they didn't think they could win the war. And he had to help inspire people from Britain to realize, like, hey, we need people. We need to realize that we just need help and people to win the war. Uh, Another thing he had was boldness and risky taking. Churchill was very bold and had to make some tough decisions, even though some found it dumb or risky. There's an example for he decided to continue fighting in World War II, even though his troops were not lasting a chance against the German invasion in France, and it turned out to be good for Britain. So basically, people didn't believe they should continue in the war, even though like Germany was actively trying to get like into Britain, but like they were just kind of against it. He had to make some bold, risky moves to get to where they are. Like for example, he really pushed a lot for the United States to get into the war, and then also the Soviets at one point. But he eventually got both of them on their side, not from really necessarily him, but like once they got there, he helped a lot. And then he was also one of the ones that helped come up with the D-Day invasion, and he realized how important that was. Him and Eisenhower, they both came up with D-Day to get into France and push, and it was really, really significant because they lost a lot of American and British soldiers, but it was really a key reason why they ended up getting in the Europe and winning. So the use of power and leadership. Churchill used different types of power effectively during his time. So legitimate power. So obviously Churchill was a prime minister during all World War II. He took it after the original prime minister resigned because he didn't want to deal with everything, and Churchill realized that someone needed to step up for Britain. So he kind of came into that role and realized, like, hey, I need to do this and help Britain succeed. So an example, his leadership in planning the war efforts, including the alliances with the Allies, the United States and Soviets, to showcase his use of power and use it effectively. So like I said, he worked really closely with Roosevelt especially, but also at times he worked with Stalin to help strategize and realize like where to do certain things. Like for example, in Africa, they had to come up with new strategies to defeat Germany because they were really getting close to taking over Egypt until Churchill and Roosevelt kind of came up with a plan to get the Germans. And also, like I said, D-Day earlier, he was a big reason why D-Day happened. So, yeah, he was really important, and he uses power in a good way, obviously. So, referent power, he was inspiring the people through his charismatic and ability to be able to connect emotionally to the public. For example, I said earlier, his speeches and unwavering determination is what kept British morale a lot higher, making him a trusted figure in the war for Britain. Like I said earlier, Churchill was really famous for his speeches. Like, he talked a lot to the faces of Britain at least, and try to get people to help with the war efforts that was fighting, making tanks, or also just making stuff, just helping in general. And a lot of Britain did help that because they didn't want the war to happen in general. No one really did, but he inspired them to keep going even when times were really tough, and he realized how important it was. But even though Churchill was very effective in making people have hope and faith in winning the war, he was very stubborn and resistant to change, to where sometimes it made him inefficient, particularly in domestic policies after World War II. And I'm going to get a little more to that in the next slide. So some successes and failures he had as a leader. So obviously some successes he had. One of the biggest things, he obviously led Britain to win World War II. His leadership was very crucial during that defeat of Nazi Germany. His speeches had also, like I said, inspired a lot of people in Britain to step up and realize they have a chance to win the war. And he also played a big role in shaping post-war diplomacy, advocating for the United Nations and NATO, which is basically where all the countries kind of come together and decide when, basically to stop war. And he helped come up with that, so that was a pretty big deal, and it's still used for today. And then some failures he had. So two of his biggest failures was when he was really young, obviously, and he was the first Lord of the Admiral, where he pushed for a fight that ended up leading to heavy military casualties in the Gallipoli campaign. So this was really big because it ended up leading him to resign from that position after it happened, and it put a big setback in his political career. So he didn't really do a lot, and he kind of went back to the bottom after that because he felt like he failed a lot of people. He felt like he was responsible for all those deaths that happened, and he didn't really like that, obviously. So he stepped back and had to rethink himself. But then another failure he had was in the 1945 election, which is weird to me because of the efforts in World War II to where he lost the general election to negligence of domestic issues. And like I said earlier, he was very stubborn and he thought a lot of himself at times, and he just didn't. His opinion was the one that mattered basically at times, and people. Obviously that was really good because no one else really had an opinion during World War II. But after it ended, they didn't really want him anymore just because they felt like he did a lot, and he just didn't. They just didn't think it was the right fit for them at the time. So. And what distinguished Churchill as a great leader? So Churchill had a lot of resilience, vision, and ability to inspire people that set apart from others. His leadership was used in Britain's darkest hour to help ensure survival of democracy in Europe. His legacy isn't only in military wins, but also in the way he contributed to the world and his enduring influence on his leadership principles. So yeah, Churchill was obviously very resilient. To where he couldn't back down really at all because everyone else was backing down to the Germans, and he couldn't. He felt like they shouldn't. And his vision was obviously to win this whole time. He always held up the little V's, which stands for victory, in Britain, and he would always be shown in public doing that, knowing he had a big vision of them end up winning the war. And also his ability to inspire people, like I've said a few times now, he really, really, really motivated the British people to really just stand up and against the Germans, who were on a non-stop tear throughout the world. And he just had to step it up for Britain through their darkest hour, knowing that this could be not the end necessarily, but the world could end up being in a darker place, and he did it when no one else could. So, yeah. And these are my references of it, and yeah, that's it.